Welcome to One More Thing. I'm Pastor Brett Watson. I'm here with Dr. Troy Doucet talking about Sunday's sermon on self-control, the last in the series, Practical Prescriptions 4.0. There was a great job, by the way.
Thank you.
I said to the people that gathered for communion afterwards, I said, I don't know about y'all, but that sermon was a little too harsh for my liking. A little too convicting.
Yeah.
And I think it was for a lot of them because they were all like, yeah, I can relate to that.
That's right.
But not self-control in the sense of, like we so often think of it, and you brought this up, that it's something that we are avoiding or resisting, yeah. But rather the discipline that it takes to prioritize life better.
That's right.
So point 3 was self-control is a lifelong game of learning to choose what I want most over what I want now.
Yeah.
And this is, of course, everybody can relate to this, right?
That's right.
And this is what was so convicting for me. Like I thought after the illustration of the golf balls and the sand and the pellets, I thought, my God, I'm 56 years old, man. I got so much sand in this friggin' vase that I don't know if I can fit any golf balls in there, you know?
Yeah.
And I was saying that to the Lord as you were talking about it. I'm like, yeah, man, I got a lot of sand in this thing. And I just felt like he said, yeah, it's okay. You're my forever kid.
Yep.
What are you going to do from this point forward?
That's right.
So anyway, good, convicting, but let's talk about this discipline.
Yeah. That was the part with the limitation on time, and there was a lot going on with the marshmallow test video and the illustration at the end. But the key is what was mostly unsaid, and that's to become a disciple of Christ requires discipline.
Yeah.
And we think of discipline as a type of punitive sort of action, like retaliatory. You've done this, now you're going to do that. But I don't think that's what it is. Discipline is part of that self-governance, right? The enkratia, the self-governance, as opposed to democratia, the governments of many. And that's ultimately what Paul is trying to do. And you read, Ricardo and I were talking a lot about Plato this morning. The whole philosophy of Plato is really around the idea of the public square, the polis. And how do we govern just a variety of people that call themselves whatever, for them Greeks, for us Americans, that have various different ideas, right, about what is right, what is wrong, and all these things. Mm-hmm. And for us, we are individuals, but yet we are a multiplicity of different identities within ourselves. And again, it's not to convict anyone, but it's just simply true. I speak very differently to my wife than I do to you. I don't tell you how lovely, your hair is today, or how pretty that dress looks on you. Like I speak very differently, right? And than I do.
I thought this was a safe place.
But that's the idea. We are many selves that occupy oneself. And so how do you govern oneself that's many? Mm-hmm. And it's through discipline. And that's where I think it's an idea of not avoiding or resisting, but wisely choosing, wisely disciplining myself to say, this is a better choice.
And the discipline, it really has to start with better understanding myself.
That's right.
Because otherwise, well, like you said in the point, I need to learn more and more what I really want most.
Yes.
What is best.
That's right.
And that's not an easy thing to do.
And I think that's where the prescription card came from. It came from me just sort of re-paraphrasing Dallas Willard, in that most of Christian...
I didn't know that you were a Dallas Willard fan.
I love Dallas, dude.
I talk about the divine conspiracy all the time.
Dude, man, like I said, I've read that book a million times. Yeah. But when most of Christianity has been boiled down to just work harder, try harder, pray harder, give harder, or whatever. And we do that in all aspects of our life.
Mm-hmm.
Parent, you just got to work harder. Willpower, right? You lose weight by willpower, by dieting harder, by working out harder. No, we're finding out, no, it's working wiser. And the old timers used to say, work hard, work smarter, not harder.
Mm-hmm.
That's true, man. That's true. And the same way, if I'm going to follow Christ, it's not about working harder. There's no requirement that Jesus ever says, just try harder. Boys, if you only tried harder. And he's like, oh, if you only knew. Wise, wisdom, right? Wisdom is to be sought. And that's the idea is, I forgot how I phrased it in the sermon, but I said, a quick fix pulls you away from a rich life. And I think that's what God wants for all of his children, right? And yet we found a way to screw that up, right? Through working harder to establish my power, my business, and we don't see the damage we leave behind many times. And in church, like we push harder to grow a church, right? To get the numbers up and really not thinking about the doctrinal stances we're taking in people's, hearts and minds, and we leave a trail of like traumatic destruction behind. And who's there to clean that up, So working harder has its place, but so does working wiser and really thinking deeply about these things even in raising children, right? What is this? The scripture, the old Jewish sages knew this. You raise a child according to the bend of that child.
Yeah.
According to and that means wisdom. I have to be wise as to what my child is like. I have 3 children, and they are diametrically opposed to each other, personality-wise and so forth. And I have to know each bend of that child, so I can wisely parent them according to their personality. Working harder as a parent means I'm trying to fit every child into one-size-fits-all parenting, right?
Yeah.
And what we've tried to do is Christianity is a one-size-fits-all. Believe this, believe that, and you're in. When in fact, no, brother, it is a constellation of ideas that garner the beauty of what God is in the world. And that's what I want to emulate, is to be Christ-like, knowing in the end, like I will never fully accomplish that. But even if I have hints of it, even if I show glimmers of it, it changes the world. And so that's why I said I eagerly choose discipline over easy distraction. I want eager discipline, not easy distraction. And it boils down to the imagination, right? That's kind of what the point was your imagination plays a part in your transformation, because I need to imagine the person I want to become, the dad I want to become, the husband. If I can get a clear mental picture, and I'm not saying compare, like comparison will kill it, because I see how you are with your son, with Joseph. And dude, there's a lot of me that envies that. Like, man, you're so patient with him. You're loving to him and blah, 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 blah. And some I'm like, man, I wish I could do that. But I'm not you. And Joseph's not Asher, right? Mm-hmm. So I have to have the wisdom to navigate that on my own. And the whole point is to simply say, what self-control is self-governance. In this way, that I am letting life unfold before me, but I have a direction of what I want to be. I want to be a dad who's this, this, and this. And if I create that in my imagination, that plays a part in my transformation, and that direction will reduce distraction, because distraction is me trying to compare. Distraction is me trying to one-size-fits-all parenting. And that's why I think wisdom, what I said, wisdom comes from knowledge, right? That's why you read I read books from parenting psychologists that say spanking is the way to go. And I read the other side that says, no, it's harmful and these things. And you come to your own conclusion, right? You find the basis from each side and you bring them into conversation.
They only lean that way, though, if they've never been a substitute teacher for a kindergarten class.
Right.
Otherwise, they'd be into spanking.
They'd be spankers, yeah. But I think that was the beauty of the marshmallow test, right? The little video we showed. It was funny. You could see people laughing, hear people laughing at the kids. They'd look at it. They'd smell it. They'd lick it. Even that one little girl took like 5 chunks out of it, put it back on the plate. Like, they'll never notice. They'll never notice I took a bite. You know?
Yeah.
And we try to frame self-control around willpower to resist when it's actually spiritual power to choose. I know this is what I want. Now go get it. Do what it takes to get it. And along the way, they're going to be easy, quick fixes. Like when Esther, I always practice my sermons on Esther, and she gives me a lot of direction, man.
Yeah, it's a good place to practice.
Because she doesn't come from the church world, right? She doesn't come from the church world. She's not hip on the lingo of churchese. And she's a bit more conservative than me in my approach to preaching, because I just want to lay it all out. And one of the things that came up, it didn't make it into the sermon, so it's kind of literally one more thing. She goes, think about how we spend time with the kids when we're making choices. What are we going to do with the kids? Because we only have them for a long weekend, right? They get in late Friday, they're here Saturday, Sunday, they're off Monday back to Dallas. The quick fix is, hey, let's throw a movie on. Pop some popcorn. Or go to a movie, whatever. And that's fine, dude. I'm not trying to condemn anyone who chooses to do that with your family, because most people watching probably have way more time with their kids than I do. But that's a quick fix for us, man. It's easy. It's distracting. It's fun. We're engaged. We're escaping. But for us, we're like, no. That's 2 hours, 2.5 hours where we're not engaged with each other. So what can we do? So we'll play a game. Let's play a board game where we're interacting with each other. So it's things like that, man. I'm not resisting going to the movie. I'm choosing to play the game for intentional, directional purpose of what I want to become, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. A good friend of Dallas Willard, Richard Foster.
Yes.
He talked about that's how I hooked up with Dallas Willard stuff. It was through Richard Foster's stuff. But anyway, he talked in Celebration of Discipline about the sanctified imagination.
Yeah.
And I think that's an important concept for Christians to buy into, because when you say imagine what you want to be as a father, using that example, Foster would just add to that, submit that imagining to the presence of God's Spirit, and see how it shapes, how it lends to that imagining. And so I just think that's a good practice in imagining these things, you know.
Absolutely. Because, I mean, you think about it. I think I said it both services. We think imagination is like fantasy, right? That's not, it can be purpose for that, but every fantastical story I've read, whether it's Chronicles of Narnia to Star Wars, I always see the imagining of becoming the best version of ourselves, right? So imagination is geared toward that. But I lost my train of thought. But the idea here is what the imagination is everything begins here. Even quote unquote sin, right? You imagine it first. I wonder what would it be like if I do that, if I say this to that person, right? Boom, it starts here and then it happens here. And that's everything begins in the mind. And what we view mentally, we pursue physically. And that's what self-control, self-governance is. That's why I think Paul writes, capture these thoughts. Lay them out before the presence of God and see if they stand the test of the best self you can become.
Yeah, make captive your imagination.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah, good stuff, man.
Yeah. Appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you.